Right, well, welcome to the Host City stream. Here we are in the beautiful Olympic Museum, spectacular location, and to those of you online, hopefully next year you will join us, because I know it's not easy to listen in at such an event online, but albeit on catch-up. And even for colleagues who are not here during this session, who are at meetings at the moment, etc., and a reminder for the people in the room as well that all the content, even in the other auditorium, is going to be accessible for at least a week after the summit is over. So if you're wondering what's going on in the other room, or colleagues are missing out, these briefings, the PowerPoint and the recordings, hence the camera, etc., will all be available too, would be point number one. Point number two is that we feel today should have a slightly different feel. Yesterday was designed to be a little bit fast and furious, where I would argue today we put a different mix of federations together for you. And I know currently we are only a small number of people in the room, but I think what we've said to the federations is trying to make it a little bit more of a conversation today. So I guess that most of you need to return home with the view of, if you look at the right, you know, could we be hosting events here? And if I pick on the right just for a moment, the thing that's important to understand in my opening remarks that I'm now making to you is we often see with host cities that there's too much what I call process work done. Perfectly logical, intellectually pure work that, in my view, is wasted or misguided. So, for example, if you have an athletics track, people say, "Oh, we must host, you know, World Athletics." In fact, to other users, and you had the example yesterday of archery. Archery may well choose to put their competition, World Championship, in that athletics venue. So just as a reminder, for London 2012, the Archery World Championship, well, not World Championship, the Olympic Championship, Olympic venue was a cricket ground. If you then take another example, to now back to the cities for their venues, I often joke when I tell this story, where do you think World Bowling does not want to host its championships? And the answer is in a bowling alley. They don't want to host their championships in a bowling alley. So when you speak to World Bowling and go, "Hey, we got the most amazing bowling alleys," and you'll probably get a, "Well, I'm not interested," because he wants his championships in a stadium. And speaking to our Norwegian friends who've got the most spectacular, as I know personally, mountains, rivers, lakesides, and the like, that is a venue. The backdrop of the mountains, the lakes, the fjords, the, you know, whatever, they are venues. So this is really important in my opening remarks. This is not a long ramble. I'm trying to set the scene. The message I'm trying to give you is be very careful about being over-analytical and being too intellectually pure at what you believe you can host. Matching pool to swimming, athletics to athletics venue, etc., etc., because I hope that you're starting to see from the federations a clear pattern. This has just gone dead. Have I turned it off? 1, 2, 3. Just gone dead. 1, 2. Oh, it's come back on again. There we go. Okay. So I hope what you've started to hear from the federations now about this, we talked about it briefly yesterday, about the activation. And how many times have you now heard the federation saying involvement of people, the ripple effect, you know, out across the city, about mass participation, involvement, and you know, one always has to choose your language carefully. And I am very passionate about making sure that we never sound like we're box ticking. But you know, there are people from disadvantaged backgrounds, you know, and people with disabilities and the like. And there is a big drive from the federations to make sure that it is, as you heard just say, Jerome say just now, that it's not just about the professional athletes. So that would be layer one of what I was trying to make in my 10 minutes allocated for opening remarks, which is be very careful not to be process driven around this venue matching to sports, because you might be very surprised. You know, I mean, if you look at the, your facilities in the right, if you look at the Copper Box in London on the Olympic Park, it is a box. It's a box venue. And it hosts this, that, and the other. For the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, the National Exhibition Centre, it is one of the major sports hosting hubs. And it's a conference and expo centre. So I would encourage those of you from the cities to really be very, very careful when somebody says, oh, but we don't have a, bowling facility, so we shouldn't dream of that. So I hope when you leave here, one of the key things will be, other than the people that you meet, and this is a bit of an arrogant statement, so please forgive me, but I hope you will go back with a very different, reorientated mind about what you could or could not host, okay? So that leads me on to what I'm going to call topic 2, which is the iceberg model, okay? So sitting above the water are all those predictable sports that, if I may say respectfully, your lords and masters will tell you to host. And I often, exaggerate, maybe or maybe not, to say we want to host the World Athletics and the FINA, swimming championships. And I've often said when we work with cities, that ain't happening. Or more accurately, that ain't happening until there, and assuming you've done that, and that. And it breaks my heart the number of times when I review a lot of work by cities on spreadsheets, and the moment my blood runs cold is when they tell me they've briefed their senior management on this target list. Because I go through it and going, no, probably not, worth a shot. So it sounds a bit negative, but it is so important. And the bit of the joke is, I don't know why you didn't speak to us, because we could pick up the phone and speak to the Federation, but it told us in 2 minutes, whether they're interested or not. So I think that's what I'm hoping you're going to take away from this, that the spreadsheet approach, intellectually pure at one level, could well be the wrong approach. And we often talk about going up the steps, and those steps are very much what is in the below the waterline events to open up and expose to you. And so today, when you look at that, you're going to hear, I think, of some sports that you never thought you would be hosting. And my contention will be that you would be hugely surprised by how beneficial it would be to understand those sports and to target those. So one, the investment to host them is low, and Techball would be the classic example of that. There are very expensive sports to host with everything that goes with it, and there are ones that are not. And often the ones that are not expensive have the greater potential for city activation and being feasible to bid for. And in that context, remember, we are talking about training camps, not just the events themselves. You're talking about regional games. You could be talking about youth games within those regions and the like. And the example I often quote, I think we're signing our agreement this week, and I've told them this, a little bit like the example we gave of Hands Up for Techball. The number was actually quite high. But I'm being straight with you. I had not heard of the International Schools Federation. I've been in this industry 20 years, right? And I'd never heard of the International Schools Federation, even heard them, until I can't remember how we ended up hearing. So I was in Deauville with them at the Gymnasiad 3 weeks ago now, I think it was. 3,500 athletes below the age of 18 years old to compete it. And with them came 1,500, because they have to go with sort of family, friends, mentory type, guardian type agencies. So 5,000 people were booking out their hotels, you know, in that, you know, and they, by the way, run Football World Cups and da-da-da-da-da around the world. And I can't remember in what sequence it is now, but I think their Football World Cup is in Brazil. They've got an event going on in China. And so there's just one case study of, you know, there are circa 150 federations, you know, out there. And I forget, in fact, you know, as you saw, we signed a contract with FIM yesterday. Excuse me, and I often quote Damiano as running something like 50 World Championships. And what was the number? Did anybody hear the number he quoted yesterday? They run something like, well, you know, when they say they run, it means, you know, within their footprint, there was something like, what did he say, 1,000? Was it 1,080 or something events a year that are taking place? So the term below the iceberg is really what we hope, again, you will take away from here. Because, you know, if we'd queued up, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to any federation, if I'd put FIFA in front of you, you might have been flattered, but gone, so what? FINA, in fairness, were desperate to be here, but they're in the wonderful city of Budapest in next week. I think it's something, yeah. And they were desperate to be with you, but you know, but they are one of the top tier ones. So, you know, to some degree, if we just only put the top tier players in front of you, when you would have gone back, maybe your bosses would have gone, I don't know why you're telling me this is a good idea, because they would be playing my role of going, that's not happening, and that's not happening, and that's not happening, and the like. Okay, so I hope that's what you're going to achieve today and tomorrow. That you're going to see a whole range of federations put in front of you, who I hope, you know, you will get to the point where you can say to yourself, is this relevant for me? We're about to move on to our first briefing in a second, but I want to leave you with that comment about the one slightly negative sounding message I gave you, which is no, 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 no. You know, that not happening, not happening, not happening. Because the way to counter that is to go up the steps of doing more ambitious things more often. That would be the way to do it. So it might be, and I won't mention which Finnish city because it would be inappropriate, but you know, I had to say respectfully to them when we were dealing with the federation that they expressed an interest, and I had to say to them, with the greatest respect, I'd never even heard of your city, never even heard of the city, not known what it could host, and that's not meant to be rude. So for many of you, I think the first thing you need to, and I think actually, I may say this to my Norwegian colleagues here, which is why we're very pleased that you're here, I would argue for a lot of the federations that we're dealing with, you are not known as a natural event hosting, maybe outside the winter sports area. So that is something you can really have a big think that many of the sports that you will see here, you say, actually, we could really could host that. So the going up the steps thing is really, really important, but I think it's the access to, you know, the achievable things that are there. And the no, 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 maybe, because we are told very clearly by federations, I'll pick Australia, we would love to go to Australia, but we have no intention of going for the next 5 years because we must be in this region. And then, so the no, no, no does not mean ever. As I said, it means going up steps and doing more and getting more famous as you go along that journey. And then or geographically when it aligns to the feds. So I hope what you will achieve in this session is to ask questions which are centered around, you know, what is it you're trying to do? And we had a very quick go at doing that earlier on. Okay.